What is up, my friends? How are we? It is a brand new week, and as always, you're very welcome along. Yeah, loads to go through tonight, so I'm not going to hang around. We'll get stuck into it. Couple of super chats already in early doors. Now, let me just put something out there before we jump into tonight's stream, actually. The Konate situation, yes, he may have rejected the first contract offer, but I'm certainly not sitting here as a Liverpool fan thinking that that's the end of these negotiations. We'll talk about it tonight, what it might mean, what exactly they're unhappy with, and what we can maybe do to resolve it, if it can be resolved. So just keep that in mind. This is just one part of a contract extension negotiation. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but for now, it does look as if Ibu, yes, has rejected it, at least according to reports. So, let's have a look. Andrew was the first one in. Said, sell Konate now. He clearly doesn't want to stay. Now look, for what it's worth, I kind of get where you're coming from. My gut feeling would be leaning to that direction as well. But like I said last night, I don't want to throw Konate under a bus because we don't know how this all plays out. Certainly not looking like we're close to an agreement or anything like that. But yeah, I just don't want to go too deep into it until we know the absolute ins and outs of it. But again, we'll talk about the report tonight that has been put out there that said that Konate has rejected the initial contract offer. Shane said, Snake 2.0, get him out of Liverpool. We had a snake, now we have a ratatouille. Time we make a stand, sign Guehi and bench the rat before we can sell him. Again, I feel like we can't really go in on Konate yet, lads. At least for me. Look, everyone's views are almost always welcome. But look at it this way. Let me read it out to you. I guess that's the easiest way, and we can go from there. So this piece here said that Ibrahima Konate has rejected Liverpool's initial offer to extend his contract, according to the Guardian newspaper. The 26-year-old centre-back is set to enter the final year of his current deal next month. None of that's really breaking news. Konate is said to be disappointed by the structure of Liverpool's offer, with his representatives believed to be pushing for a higher basic wage rather than the offer, which was heavily based on meeting certain performance targets. Liverpool centre-back... actually, that goes on to speak about Kwanzaa, sorry. So, yeah, look, not ruling it out of hand, but like they say in this piece, apparently, and again, we ain't inside these negotiations, they're not happy with the basic salary, and Liverpool have looked to incentivise his salary a lot more. What that means in the grand scheme of things, I don't know. We know that he's roughly on about 80 grand a week, but we also know that there's been reports that he's asking for about 200 grand a week. So, not to say this is unfixable, but certainly for now, it doesn't look like we're any closer to Konate signing a new Liverpool contract. Right, let's get into these comments. Which ones are uploading fastest? Let's keep swapping around. Sorry, that means nothing to you guys. It's just an internal monologue in my own head. For me, look, it's tough because I love Ibu. We all do, but I don't think he's worth 200 grand a week, as I've said many times. And I think with another bit of news today, our hand may be strengthened even further with the situation. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, this piece here said that Joe Gomez is happy at Liverpool and he's keen to extend his stay, or to, continue on at the club despite interest from other clubs. So if that's the case, brilliant. That means we have Gomez. That gives us cover. And if we can get Gomez fit for pre-season and ready to go, well, then that puts a little bit less pressure. If you can bring Marc Guehi in, brilliant. Jarell Kwanzaa moving out, Marc Guehi coming in, would give us Marc Guehi, Joe Gomez, Virgil van Dijk, a couple of youngsters like Nalo perhaps, and then other players like Wataru or others who can come in and fill in at centre-back. So it's not the end of the world yet, but that Gomez news for me really gave me a big sigh of relief earlier on to hear that Joe wants to stay. And for what it's worth, I actually do think that Joe Gomez will see a lot more action next season if he does stay. We know the injury problems have been tough with Joe, but it made me breathe a little bit easier, knowing that whatever happens with Ibu, and again, we don't know how it's going to pan out, at least we know if Joe wants to stay and we bring in a centre-back to replace Kwanzaa, we're at least not going to be panic stations by the end of the window. Evening, Craig, said Brian. Welcome in, mate. Alex, lovely to see you as well. The good Kev said, Craig, from what you've just said, sums it up. He wants the money guaranteed each week, regardless of how well he performs. Stand firm, Liverpool, I say. Just shows it's all about money. See, I can't push back much, Kev, against what you've said there, because I can understand where you're coming from. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm falling into the trap of wanting to think the best of everybody here, because usually I'm a cynical old git, but I don't know. But Ibu, if I gave you my gut feeling on it, I kind of do think he's more out than in, if that makes sense. But we don't know how this was being resolved or how it may be resolved. All we know is that according to this report, the initial offer has been rejected. But then again, we also know that there have been conversations with Ibu over the past 6 months, and still doesn't look like we're any closer to an agreement. Trent is to blame for Konate. Negative world, said Carl. Also, I've seen your post, Carl, about having COVID. I hope you feel better soon, my man, or I hope you've recovered already. Corbin said, got to be ruthless. If he won't sign, got to sell. No, see, for that, I'm in 100% agreement with you. I've said this all the way through. If you can't get an agreement by, I don't know, pick a date, whatever date works for the club. If you can't get an agreement by then, tough decisions have to be made. But you don't exhaust giving up the idea of trying to negotiate a new deal with him. While that's option still on the table, I'd like to see Liverpool continue to try and negotiate. But if there's no headway or no breakthrough, then yeah, I do think it's time to start playing hardball. But I don't know, are we there yet? Not really my decision to make, but I would say we're not far off it. You wouldn't want to be going into pre-season knowing that Konate hasn't signed or we're no closer to an agreement. So, yeah, look, I think everybody's going to have a different view on this one, but it's certainly not great reading to see that Konate hasn't agreed a new deal yet. Tom Judge, how are we, bro? 22 months with us as a member, Tom. Absolute legend, bro. Thank you. Said, hope all is well in your world. Yeah, not bad. It's been a decent day today, to be honest. Yeah, not too shabby. Jonathan said, evening, Craig. How's your weekend being with Brian? It was lovely. Yeah, it was lovely. Thank you, mate. We went to Mullingar. We brought him down to Wexford. Yeah, had some fun. It was an interesting weekend. Lovely to see him, his brother and his brother's partner as well. They're heading back tomorrow, so wishing them the safe travels home. Stevie Boy said, Liverpool need to be ruthless and sell Konate. Can't have this drag on during the season. So let's put it to a poll. And we'll see how everyone's feeling about it. So let me just get this worded up for you, and then we'll get back into it. Just give me 15, 20 seconds to write this out. Okay, so what should Liverpool do about the Konate situation? So, keep negotiating. Keep negotiating, sell. Right, so I can only really think of 3 outcomes here. So, what should Liverpool do about the Konate situation? Keep negotiating, sell, or up their offer? Let me know what you guys think on that one, and we'll revisit this in a while. It's not fair for me to just impinge my views onto you guys. That's not how this works. I need to know how everyone's feeling. For what it's worth, I've made my point on this pretty clear. If you can't agree with them soon, and I don't know what date is, let's say 8th of July, just as to throw it out there as a date, because that's when we're coming back for pre-season, then yeah, I would start to play hardball and start to explore a sale, because we can't be held to ransom here by Real Madrid, by a player, or by anyone. Konate's been a very welcome addition to the squad. Certainly been a good partner for Virgil van Dijk, but I would say I would put him in the category of not irreplaceable. Good, very good, but not irreplaceable. So that's where I am with it. Liz, how are we, Liz? Hope we can fill these holes quickly. Liz, you're killing me here. You're killing me. It's begging for it. That's what she said, Liz. Come on. You're killing me, Liz. There aren't too many holes, to be fair. Like, if Kwanzaa goes and we bring in Marc Guehi, I think that's an upgrade, in all honesty. Also want to get your thoughts on the Konate or the Kwanzaa situation with regards to his buyback clause, because I think Florian Plettenberg's got this very, very wrong, but we'll come on to that in a moment. Jake said, hi mate, hope you're well. But if Ibu doesn't stay, I think we need both Guehi and Collins due to Gomez' injury record. Oh, absolutely. Look, when I say we're not too bad with Gomez, with, let's say, Marc Guehi and Virgil, I wouldn't say I'm over the moon with that. Like you said, I would absolutely want to bring in another centre-back. But what I meant with the Gomez thing is it just gives that bit of versatility and fallback to the manager. Because if Joe wanted to move on as well, and Kwanzaa moves on, and we can't get Konate to stay, just for me, that would have been an incredible headache. So, yeah, I'm absolutely happy if we can bring in somebody else to replace Konate. But I don't know yet if we're at that point of let's talk about selling him. You know, how close are we? I guess that's for everybody else to decide personally. But I wouldn't give up on it just yet. Will said, "Evening, Craig. Said to you my wish list signings a few weeks back, 3 in the bag, so I'm still going to say Van de Ven for Konate replacement. I just don't think his injury record would be one that we could go near, Will. You know, he's had a pretty horrendous time of it since he's gone to Spurs with injuries, and I just don't think we could rely on him to be an able or versatile partner to Verge. But that's why I kept coming back to the Nathan Collins thing. Homegrown, reasonable price, leader, Irish, and bulletproof. Played every game last season. He can refuse to go and sit out his contract. Absolutely he can. And miss the World Cup next year. Absolutely. He's perfectly within his rights to say, I have a contract. I'll see out that contract. No argument about that whatsoever, mate. But he'll do it in the 21s if I'm his coach. If that's the angle, you're not going to the World Cup because you're not going to be playing for us. Therefore, you're not going to be picked for your national team. Therefore, is it worth it to miss a World Cup as well? That will be my response anyway, PC Draft. But absolutely, he's perfectly within his rights to stay and see his contract down. But this is what I said. We're lucky, in my opinion, that this is coming into a World Cup year. If it wasn't, I think we'd be in a bigger disadvantage in any negotiation. But you are right, mate. We can't force somebody to do anything. Craig, my membership chat snuck through while your head was turned. Did it? 1 second. It did, Steve. Yes, sorry. I want the Vert's attitude in all players, said Steve. Yeah, he looked cool, calm and collected. It's been lovely hearing Jeremy Frimpong speaking as well about what a good player and a good fella Verts is. Sorry, man, I missed that initially, Steve. You're right. My apologies. Right, so let's check in, see how we're doing so far on our poll initially. So we asked, what should Liverpool do about the Konate situation? Keep negotiating, sell, or up their offer? So, again, it's hard to say up their offer when we don't really know the sums that are being offered to him from Liverpool. We know what's rumoured to be asked, but again, we don't know where Liverpool are at with this. So, it's a very interesting time, definitely. But I think if you could bring Marc Guehi in quite quickly, I think that would certainly strengthen Liverpool's hand even more. You know, because the more we're in need, the more it suits the camp of Konate and his representative. The more we look like we're not panicking and we've got things sorted out, I think the more it strengthens their hand. Dr. Campbell said, just keep negotiating. If he wants more, put him up for sale. Well, it's about how far apart they are, I guess, first. And also, we don't, like this piece here just said that Liverpool are offering them an incentivised deal and that they want more guaranteed money up front. So it's hard to know kind of where we're at with that. But I do agree, a bit more negotiation. There's certainly time for that. No need to panic here, but it doesn't seem to be trending in the right direction. That's all I'll say at the minute. Right, Daniel, how are we, dude? Over in Australia, thank you so much. For the stability of the team, maybe we pay overs. The 12.5 million on wages it would cost extra, we would spend on getting a replacement, just worried on all the changes at the back. So this is where, Daniel, I have to say, the amortization of contracts and all that kind of stuff makes those calculations a little bit less, I don't want to say the word basic, but a little bit less simple as what we've just kind of spoke about here, the 12.5 million in wages versus X, Y, or Z, because I don't know how that works out in Liverpool's balance sheet over the course of the time here. So, yeah, I don't know about those particular calculations, but I just don't want us to overpay. I don't think he is somebody that deserves to be on the same money as Florian Wirtz that's coming in for £116 million. Because remember, 200 grand a week is what he's on. And yes, he has an incentivized contract that will see him earn more, but Virgil van Dijk was only on about 220 grand a week up until his new contract. And he is far further along and far a more accomplished centre-back than Konate. And for me, I just think 150% increase in wages is nuts. I just don't think he's improved 150% since he's come here. What are the odds that we pay for Haddo this summer and loan him back to Ajax? Other than Collins, who would you go for? Slim to none, I would imagine, on loaning him back to Ajax, because with the amount of offers on the table for him, like Arsenal 6-year contracts for him, I don't know that we have enough depth that we could buy somebody in like that for about 35-40 million euro and then loan them back out for a year. I don't think that would be the right move for us, the way the market is going. So for me, like the player, like you said, with Joe staying, I don't know if that maybe decreases the need for somebody like that who can play across the back line. Maybe we can focus more on an actual just an out-and-out centre-back. Sell him to Real and buy Guehi. Well, we're buying Marc Guehi from the money from Jarell Quansah. That's the plan there. Jarell Quansah to buy Leverkusen, then Liverpool go and buy Marc Guehi. And on that, let's actually talk a little bit about the Jarell Quansah situation, because Liverpool's buyback clause, according to Pippo Aarons and a few others, is £51 million for Quansah, which makes sense. Because remember what we said last night. Liverpool are getting 30 million plus 5 million up front, 5 million in add-ons, so that's 35 million total package. If you're going to buy him back from Leverkusen, £51 million to me sounds about fair, because they will have improved him if we're buying him back, and he will have developed as a player. If you don't buy him back, then it all becomes irrelevant. But that figure sounds fine to me. But Florian Plettenberg, I don't know where he's getting this from, but Florian Plettenberg has said that basically the buyback is 40 million euro, which is nonsense. Because basically that means that, we've just basically loaned them Quansah? It just makes no sense. And even the numbers he put in his article or in his post makes no sense. 30 million euro plus 5 million euro in add-ons isn't the fee. It's £30 million and 5 million in add-ons. So I think Plettenberg's had a bit of a mare there. And even people on social media joking, saying, what, are we money laundering here or something? Because that makes no sense, what he said. Why would you sell a player? Or if you're a buying club, why would you buy a player, improve him, and then let the selling club come back in and take him back for pretty much the same money? It just makes no sense. Any news on Elliott moving on? Not yet, Carl. I think, well, actually, I was going to say he's still at the Euro, so obviously focusing there, but so is Jarell, and he's got that deal trashed out with Leverkusen. But what we spoke about yesterday was, it was thought that Aston Villa, Carl, were the most likely for Harvey Elliott, but then Brighton have come into the mix, and on two good clubs, two good options there for Harvey Elliott, and Liverpool looking for about £40 million according to reports. Liam said Plettenberg is wrong. There is no set price on buyback clauses. Well, there absolutely is. There absolutely is. He's wrong. You're right about that part, but there is set prices on buyback clauses. It happens all the time. But on this one, the £51 million number that's doing the round seems to be the one that's based in some sense of reality. As I mentioned, it's 30 plus £5 million, and Plettenberg's talking in euro, so yeah, I think he's wrong. By the way, Nat Phillips has completed his move to West Brom for a fee of about £3 million, said Paul Joyce, including add-ons. So we knew that he was undergoing a medical in that, but now we can confirm Nat Phillips has completed his move to West Bromwich Albion for a fee inclusive of add-ons of £3 million. And sincerely want to say thank you as a Liverpool fan to Nat Phillips. You know, never really looked like he was going to make the grade at Liverpool all in, but certainly helped us out on many occasions, filled in admirably, and he'll always have that moment at the San Siro as well. So wishing Nat Phillips nothing but the very best at West Brom. I think West Brom fans will love him. He's an honest, hard-working defender, and I'm just happy for him now that he's going to get to go and play regularly and settle down at a club. So wishing him nothing but the best on his move. Mahady said Brighton would be a good move for Elliott. I think so. So would Villa. Both very good clubs, both very good potential moves for him. You know, Brighton are a club who play some good football, and I think their fans would love Elliott as well. So, you know, I just want the best for Harvey, as well as obviously Liverpool Football Club here. And if we could get £40 million and he could go play regularly, I think it's a win-win. Do you think Liverpool would realistically bench Konate next season when they're going all in to win the lot? Yes, you have to. You have to, mate. Otherwise, you just look like a laughing stock. I know it sounds horrible. And, you know, I take no pleasure in talking about that side of life. But what else can you do? Because if you play him, you look like a bit of a cook in this situation. And then you just, let him walk out the door to Real Madrid? And we're the ones that end up kind of shafted anyway. I just, you know, I don't think he's a Virgil van Dijk or Mohamed Salah, Alisson Becker level of player in the squad that would throw the season away if you didn't have him there. I think you could go out and bring in a centre-back that would do a job as good as Ibrahima Konate. I really do feel that way. So that's just my take on it. But again, I'm not saying what I'm saying is right. But I certainly wouldn't be taking this line down if I'm Liverpool, especially with what happened with Trent. I think you got to draw a line in the sand here. What about Barcola? That's nonsense, in my opinion. And we'll talk about that in the late video because I do have a little bit on that for later on. But yeah, that Barcola link, I just can't see any truth to it, especially at the numbers that has been mentioned. Because if it is on the numbers that have been mentioned, I'd make the argument as well that they ain't worth anywhere near the numbers that have been spoken about. Eddie said if he doesn't want to sign the contract, sell him. Yeah, I think, Eddie, for me, mate, I'd put a date in there, and I don't know when the date is, but let's throw in the 8th of July. Is it just a random date? And I would say, look, let's keep chatting with his camp. Let's keep chatting with his representatives. But if you're not getting a breakthrough or you look like you're getting close, yeah, you've got to make that difficult decision. And I just don't think he's irreplaceable. You know, I'm not saying he's not a good defender. I've said all the way through, I want Konate to stay. But he's not worth losing sleep over, in my opinion, if we don't keep him. That's the fairest I can be about it. I think we can bring in somebody who can do equally as good a job. And there isn't, unlike the striker situation, where there's probably a real lack of out-and-out top-class strikers, I think there's some really good options at centre-back in world football at the minute. So certainly wouldn't lose sleep if we had to make that tough decision. Glyn said, love Konate, but doesn't have the best availability, sell, unfortunately. So I think this season, and I'm working off memory, I think his availability was all right. From my own personal memory, I don't remember Ibu missing too many games with muscle strains and injuries this season compared to previous seasons. But it just comes back to one thing for me, value in the deal for the club. And again, you got to remember, if you start setting these precedents and just say, okay, well, give him the 200 grand, then what happens when the next player wants a contract extension, the next player wants a contract extension? You do have to do these things in a realistic way. And I've always said, all the way through this, I just don't see Konate as a 200 grand a week defender. I just really just don't. Is Alvarez still on? Nobody said Alvarez was ever on. So I don't know why you're saying still on. Nobody ever said it was definitely on. It was something Liverpool looked at, but it certainly seems as if he doesn't want to play back in England. I don't think it's nothing to do with the league or our club. I think it's more to do with the weather and the fact that didn't feel as settled over here. So I think one more year at Atleti, and then unfortunately it looks like if he does leave Atleti, my man, it will be to Barcelona maybe in the future. There are 5 or 6 really good options at centre-back, said Mr. Hazzy. FSG don't have the balls to put Konate with the under-21s and not even play him if he refuses. Well, you don't even have to put him to the 21s if you don't want to be that way. You can just throw him on the bench for the season. You know, just do to him what happened with Chiesa last season. And FSG don't have the balls to do it. I think they do. I think it would be a last resort. You know, you wouldn't want to have that destabilizing effect because you don't want to have an unhappy player around as well. So it's always a last resort thing, but I don't know about them not having the balls to do it. I think they probably do. And again, not just the owners, but the club in general, because I can only imagine how annoyed they've been by the Real Madrid stuff. TTI said Konate's effing quality. Let's not start being disrespectfully solid as a rock. So again, don't think we're being disrespectful. Solid as a rock, I think you're being a bit too supportive. He's good. He's very good. But he's not irreplaceable. And if Liverpool can't get to an agreement on the numbers with him, I don't think I'd lose a minute's sleep looking into next season if he left. As I said, he's not an Alisson, a Verge, a Mo. He isn't. He's a damn good centre-back, absolutely, and has been a very good partner for Virgil van Dijk, but not irreplaceable. That's the most honest I can be about it as a fan. Right, so we've had over 2,000 votes now, so we'll let it go another couple of minutes, and we'll get to 2.5 and we'll call it. The options are, what should Liverpool do about the Ibrahima Konate situation? Keep negotiating, sell, or up their offer. That's the options that we have there. And again, I appreciate that everybody sees this differently. I don't always expect us to agree on these things. That's why I put these votes out, so we can get a good feeling then of what at least the majority of our community are thinking. Virgil and Mo are on 400k. He's looking half that. Yeah, and he isn't worth it. So you're missing some very important dots here in your connection of Virgil and Mo are on 400k. He wants half that. Firstly, he's at a point in his career where he probably has 2 or 3 big contract renewals left in him. Virgil and Mo are at the tail end of their careers, having gotten to the top of the mountain and absolutely been difference makers to the team, whether it's Mo's goals or Virgil's solidity at the back. In no way do I think that Konate has gotten anywhere near their level of influence. So to just throw around these guys are on 400k, well, how do you say that to Florian Wirtz, who's on 200k, who's just been a British record signing on £116 million? So, it's easy to just say, I'll give them half of it, but what did those guys have to do to get that 400 grand? They had to prove that they were absolutely the best in the world in their positions to get that money. Do you think Konate is top 10 centre-backs in the world? No, he isn't. But can he get there? Yeah, but that's when you pay him that money. Not now. Not when he's looking to go from 80 to 200. No. Surely 200k is standard for a Premier League winning centre-back. No, it isn't. Look, we throw these numbers around like they're nothing. Like 200 grand a week is a pretty damn significant amount of money. So no, it isn't. Now, again, that's not to say United haven't thrown away stupid money on centre-backs over the years, but none of that Leicester team would have been near that. He's just not worth it, in my opinion. Who's the top 10 centre-backs then? Yeah, it's firstly, fuck you. That's number 1. Again, you smart arse little dickhead. You list them. I'm giving you an opinion. But I'm not here to listen to your shite. You disrespectful little shit. So if you want to give a Billy Big Bollocks, back it up. Or shut the fuck up. Konate is easily top 10 in the world. Is he? That's why he's in and out of the French team. Top 10 in the world, and he's in and out of the French team. Realistically, is he top 10 in the world? Hand on heart, is he? No, he isn't. That's my opinion. You can tell me he is top 10 in the world, no problem. But he can't even nail down a place in the French team starting. So he's what, 3rd or 4th best in the French team, but top 10 in the world? Sorry. Just getting rid of some assholes. Do you think Guehi is better? I probably haven't watched enough of Marc Guehi to make that statement that he's better or not. That's my honest answer. I think he certainly wouldn't be a lot worse if he was a little bit worse. Look, you can go back and look at my conversations about Konate over the course of 2-3 seasons. I've consistently said the same things. Can look brilliant, can look $1 million, and then can look like Bambi on ice, can give away stupid free kicks, has had some muscle strains and injuries in the past. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's madness to give him that much money. That's just my take on it, like I've said. But I'm being respectful to people who are being respectful back, but I'm not putting up with any little dopes in the chat that think they can just come out with blasé statements to just be a shithouse. Back it up. I don't think he's top 10 in the world. If you do, by all means. But I just don't. As I said, can't even nail down a regular starting place in the French team. I can't understand why any player would want to leave the biggest club in England first. That right back now, Konate. So for me, next contract extension for Konate, you're probably getting to the 200 grand a week conversation if he proves it again. But at this point, I just don't think he's developed 150% better than he was when he got here. And obviously the club don't either, by the way. So, the club don't think he's worth that, or they would have given it to him. So we've got to keep that in mind as well. The club certainly haven't felt, oh yeah, definitely top 10, definitely 200 grand a week. Here, have it. Sell him, is greedy for money, get a new centre-backs at LLJ. Again, weirdly, I've tried to say all the way through this, let's calm down here and let's not rush the judgment, because we don't know what Konate has asked for. Same way I can't sit here and tell you what Liverpool have offered him. I don't know. But all we can talk about is what's been written and what's been put out there. Konate himself said that the reports that he was close to an agreement with the club back in November, December were wrong. And he called the media liars for it. Now, like I said, we had some top tier journalists saying that at the time. Ornstein, Romano, Joyce. And then we have this one saying that the club has turned down an offer. And it's not his first offer. There's certainly been talks about his contract and other offers previously. And this has dragged on for 6, 7, 8 months now. So there's either a huge dearth in what Liverpool are offering and what he's asking for, or we ain't ever going to get this agreement. But I do, again, say that just because it's been rejected doesn't mean that they can't find a middle ground here. But, I also don't know what noises Konate's camp are given to the clubs about the future. Is this about a project? Is this about a starting place? Is this about the direction the club is going in? Or is this about money? I don't know that. None of us do. Which is why I've always tried to say, be respectful towards the situation, because we don't know the ins and outs of it. But again, some people jump the gun, get a bit ahead and go too deep either way. That's why I put the poll up, to ask what you guys think we should do. What's his worth? To me, Bill Ben, I would say he's on 80, 140, 150 is kind of where I'm at. Because yes, you've got to look at inflation as well, be the boring about it. You've got to look at that measure of things. And again, it's hard to say what he's worth when we don't know what the basic offer was and then what the add-ons are. So let's say, for instance, we're arguing here right now and Liverpool have offered him 120 basic with add-ons and achievable targets that may easily take that to 200 grand. Then, if we do well, you're getting the money. If you perform well, you're getting the money. So I think it's smart for the club to look to the incentivized part of it, because you want to keep a player hungry. You want to make them achieve stuff. You want to win stuff and get the big payday on top of it. To just say to somebody every week, regardless of how you play, yeah, we're going to give you this amount for 4 or 5 years. It's easy for us to sit here and just say yes, but it does have a knock-on effect as well. And especially when the next player comes through his negotiation and the next player comes for it. And like I mentioned, They just put 200 grand a week basic onto a £116 million player. So the club did well to negotiate that basic wage, in my opinion, there for Wirtz. Top 10 centre-backs: Van Dijk, Bastoni, Diaz. Ruben Diaz isn't in the top 10 centre-backs in the world either, mate. Your list is absolute horseshit. So Saliba. Mate, that list is bullshit. I'm sorry, but it's absolute nonsense. Some of those names in that list are shocking. Kim Min-jae is awful. Awful. Can't get a game. And you have him in the top 10 in the world. You need to revisit your list, mate. That's shocking. If you think, honestly, if you think they're the best 10 centre-backs in the world, mate, you need to watch more football. That's shocking. Have you looked at Van Aert from Dynamo Kiev? 20 million, maybe worth a shot if we don't buy a known striker. Also, look at Man United. They can't offload any players because clubs can't pay players 200 grand a week. Exactly, mate. You've just nailed it, Joseph. Loads of clubs right now, Chelsea, United, are stuck with these flops. And Konate isn't a flop by any stretch, but are stuck with players on high wages that nobody else will pay. There's only like a handful of clubs in the world that can pay that type of money. Maybe 10, 12 at most. Give us your list. I don't have a list. I've never claimed to have a list. I just said I wouldn't put Konate in the top 10 in the world. Simple as that. Oh, you do make me smile though. Pontus, Berlin said, hello, I'm a bit late in. What have I missed? We're just discussing a couple of things. We're talking about the Konate situation, the Kwanzaa situation, and some of the misreporting around certain numbers around the Kwanzaa deal. Talking a little bit about Nat Phillips. We were all wishing Nat Phillips well with his move to West Bromwich Albion. That was confirmed today. Paul Joy said a deal totaling £3 million. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're up to for now, my man. Was there another one I missed? Sorry for that person. Who is the centre-back you'd want? So there's a few, to be honest with you, like we've mentioned before. I love the idea of Nathan Collins, and the more I've sat and thought about this over the last few days, the more I'm absolutely sold on it. But I love the idea of Marc Guehi in for Jarell Kwanzaa. I think that's an upgrade, at least in the short term. Jarell has talent, there's no denying that. But that's why the buyback clause in there was very clever. And to be fair to the chat, a lot of them suggested that over the past few weeks when we've been talking about Kwanzaa maybe moving on. So fair play to the chat for that one. But yeah, look, I think I want Konate to stay. I've said this all the way through. Like, maybe this has come across like I want him out. I don't. I want Ibu to stay. I don't like the idea of lots of change at the back. But I think going from 80 grand a week to 200 grand a week guaranteed would be madness. That's been my take on it all the way through. Want Ibu to stay. Love his partnership with Virgil. But just don't feel like he deserves 200 grand a week yet. Not in this one. Not for me. Right. So, we've had over 3,000 votes, and thank you sincerely to everybody, no matter what side of this little debate we're on. Thank you. So, what should Liverpool do with the Konate situation? 51% said sell, 39% said keep negotiating, and 9% said up the offer. I would probably put myself in the keep negotiating category for now, but I would put a deadline on it, and the deadline wouldn't be too far away. A couple of weeks max. How do PSG pay everyone 350k a week? Look at who owns them, bro. Look at who owns them. That's all I'm going to say. Making the books balance doesn't have to really apply too much. But they've also weirdly built themselves as a brand, a fashion brand almost to some extent. There's a lot of stuff I don't like about how PSG have operated, but I will say one thing to them. That Jordan partnership with Nike has been absolutely epic. And some of the places they've opened PSG stores as well in very prominent, wealthy positions. They've established themselves not just like as a football club, but also as a brand to some extent, which has brought in a lot of money as well over time with their very rich owners. Deborah said, Guehi was England's best defender in the Euros, against some of the best in Europe. We left very few goals in. Unlike Liverpool, we only have Pickford in goal. Yeah, look, big fan. As I said, big fan of the idea of Marc Guehi coming in for Jarell Quansah replacement. I think that's very clever business for us, and adding in more leadership as well. Because, Guehi has been a leader everywhere he's been. So for me, that if we can get this deal over the line, that's brilliant. And you would have to imagine that Liverpool feel quite confident in it, or they wouldn't be letting Quansah go like they are. So I would have to imagine we think that Marc Guehi is achievable. But again, the toughest part of that will probably be negotiating with Crystal Palace over it, because they seem to think he's worth still about 50 million quid with 1 year to go. I think Liverpool probably think otherwise. So that might be a tough negotiation. Craig, if we sell Ibu, do you think we will try hard to get Guehi? I think Guehi is the Quansah replacement, Mason. Honestly, mate, I do. And I think it's genius, in all honesty. You know, if let's say for 1 minute here, Konate agrees next week and he stays. Think about it like this. You'd have Virgil, Guehi, Konate and Gomez, as well as maybe young Nello, and then of course the likes of Endo who can play in there as well. That's a collection of centre backs that, I tell you what, that's not too shabby at all. You know, Virgil, let's say partnering with even Konate or Guehi. And finally, if you brought Guehi in, you'd finally probably be able to give Virgil a rest, knowing that we've got somebody who has played left side of centre back, and you could play him with Konate without missing a beat. You know, let's be honest, if we were playing, I don't know, bear with me. I don't know if you guys can still hear me or not. Bear with me. Yeah, we're back. Don't know what's gone on. The last couple of days, that's happened with YouTube twice, and it's not an internet connection thing. Apologies. I don't know what's going on. It just feels like YouTube's been a bit dodgy lately. So yeah, sincerely apologies on that. But where was I? Yeah, sorry, I was talking about the collection of centre backs. So if we could get Konate to stay, right, and we brought in Guehi, you would have Guehi, Konate, Van Dijk, and Gomez. Lads, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant collection for me of centre backs, and I would view that as an upgrade from last season, simply by bringing in a bit more experience in Marc Guehi than we had with Jarell Quansah. I'd be buzzing with that. But if Konate left, like I've said, I wouldn't mind the likes of Nathan Collins if we could do that. You know, I've got so many things open in front of me showing the connection. It ain't my Wi-Fi, I can promise you that. What's this one? We got Konate when Bayern were totally convinced that Upamecano was better. Oh, that one's gone. I was reading that one out. Would I take Haddo? Yeah, I like the idea of Haddo, definitely. But don't know if he's ready to come in yet. That's why I keep talking about the experience of... Sorry, I'm distracted by some of the comments. Sorry. That's why I love the idea of the experience of Guehi coming in. I think it's genius. Right, let me just get back to this. Liz says your technical skills have come so far. Oh, Liz, I couldn't have gotten any worse, could I? To be fair, Liz. Dodge Rogers, thank you, mate. Nick said there are so many centre backs out there. It isn't a flashy position with goals and assists to obsess over. Plenty of players out there just want to take the next step. I agree. Like I've said, this isn't like the striker situation where I think there is a real lack of top quality options out there. This is one that I think, as I said, I wouldn't lose any sleep over if we had to replace him. But again, I don't want to. I want him to stay. David said, good morning, Craig. Hope you're well. Isak rumours won't go away. It's just the numbers, though, David, that are involved in it, mate. Like, if you're talking upwards of 150, I dare say it's just not worth the money. Shane, hey, Craig, I know you're not a massive Gaelic man, but can't wait for my trip to Croker on Sunday. We're up against it, but back us on the Kingdom. Mate, Meath have had an incredible Oh, that's the Royal County. Kingdom's Kerry. You're Kerry, Shane, aren't you? Sorry. Yeah, in that case, I don't care. Sorry, mate. I haven't really followed it. I know Dublin are playing in the quarter-final now. They got into the back door or something, but yeah, I haven't really followed it. Right, where are we at with the comments? Let's see where we at. Right. If we were to give Jones a new wage, he's on 15k a week. Oh, God. Jones certainly deserves to be up in the 70, 80 bracket, in my opinion. If he's still on 15k a week, that's robbery. He should be on more than that. Tanya said Robbo might need replacing too. Yeah, he may. I think, again, though, one left back staying would make it a lot easier to judge this over another season or two. Whether that's Robbo, whether that's Costas, I'm relaxed about it, but either one of them, for me, staying would be great. Let me just run you through some other bits of news, actually. Let's talk Darwin Nunez for a minute. We're still waiting to hear if the first part of the medical have been completed for Milos Kerkez. We know he's in today, and we know that he's undertaking the first part of his medical today, but we haven't had any word yet to suggest that it's 100% happy days. But no, nothing to suggest it isn't either. So hopefully we get that full announcement tomorrow. At least that's when it's scheduled for. Right, what else we got today on the news? We've done that. Let's talk Darwin for a minute. Because this latest piece here said that it depends on the financial feasibility for him to join Napoli. After contacts took place over the weekend between Darwin and Napoli, there remains an openness and a willingness to do it. But I don't know, do you think they're going to come up with the money? So let me just ask this as a simple poll. Let me just get a poll up. It's just a simple yes or no on this one. 1 second. Okay. So, do you think Darwin joins Napoli? That's the poll. I struggle, honestly, to see Napoli getting to the number that Liverpool will be happy with. That's the problem that I think there is with this deal. I think they could probably come to an agreement with Darwin on wages, and certainly selling him on the idea of going to play with Conte and in Napoli. I can see all of that being possible. But I feel like we're going to be lowballed. I feel like Italian teams always try to lowball. So that's what my concern is about this potential deal, is that we'll be lowballed and we won't take the lowball offers. But if we can get to a deal with them, yeah, I think it happens. Where are we on this one? Craig, I would pay Ibu 160k max. Also, just a few questions. Who do you think will cover for Ryan when he's suspended for the start of the season? Any news on Doak? And any news on the kid Fofana? Right, so not too far away with you on the wages, mate. I think 150 is kind of where I'm at, so we're in the same ballpark, Adam. Second part, I would imagine probably first game of the season, you'll see McAllister drop into the 6, and you probably see Wirtz and Szoboszlai play together. So I think that would almost give Arne less of a headache, because Gravenberg's suspended for that one, and we're all wondering, will we be able to get to 4 of them in at one point? So opening day, I think it'll be Maka in the 6, and then the 2 boys ahead. Next part was Doak. I don't know of anything new personally. And Fofana, yeah, plenty of interest in him. Look, the one thing we know about Fofana is if Liverpool want him, he'll want to come, because his agent said it's always been his dream. We also know that Lyon are rumouredly looking at about €50 million, which is about, £42 million. Liverpool interested, Chelsea interested, and a few more. But that's where my information stops on that one, mate. I don't know if we proceed with that one or not. So, I'm not going to put this to a poll, but just throwing it into the chat, and would really love your take on this. How do I word this? If Chiesa gets sold, do you think Liverpool need to go into the market to bring in a Federico Chiesa replacement? Or would you be okay going through this season, let's say, and waiting for young Rio then to maybe develop a bit, or young Kumas or somebody else? I've gone back and forth on this one in my mind because in one way, well, we didn't utilise him last year, so it's not like we're missing out on much on the pitch. But in another way, I wouldn't just like to see the club bring in money and not spend. So I'm kind of torn on it a little bit. Selfishly, yeah, I would. I'd like to see another player brought in. Of course, you'd want as many options for your team as possible. Lots of people trying to give Chiesa a chance. Look, there seems like the Chiesa decision's been made by his side. I remember Arne Slot at the end of the season saying that, as far as he's concerned, he will be here next season. He said definitely yes. But then we'd seen Fabrizio Romano in recent weeks saying decision's been made, Chiesa wants to return to Italy. So I don't think it's us booting him out of the club at this point. I think he just thinks World Cup year, he needs to play. Italy have a new manager in Gennaro Gattuso, and he needs to go and play somewhere. That's honestly what I think is driving this one. So I can understand it as well. Like, if I'm in his shoes, I'm going to want to play to try and get to the World Cup, to play with Italy if they make it. Craig, is Osimhen a possibility in your opinion? Certainly, judging by the media, it seems to be at least in the conversation. There's a few reports that suggested, and again, I would say take this with a pinch of salt, but they said Liverpool have offered Darwin and Chiesa to Napoli for Osimhen. And Napoli have said, okay, but we also want £15 million. And that to me seems excessive from their side. Like, if you looked at the valuations, what's the release clause of Osimhen? €70 million, something like that, which is about £62 million. So if Liverpool sold Darwin for 45 and Chiesa for 17, I think that comes to pretty much the Osimhen price. So I don't think there should be any money in that scenario, which I certainly don't know to be an absolute bona fide fact, but just based off the reporting, I don't think it'd be worth another 50 million on top of those personally. And then again, I have no idea what type of money that he's on or is asking for as a wage. Haven't got a clue. Don't even know what he's on currently. Liz, you're off the barbecue pork belly. Nice. Enjoy, my friend. Brandfield said, hey Craig, 6 months and you're still my favourite. Appreciate your support, my friend. I really do. It's mad how time flies along as well, isn't it? 6 months. It's when I see some people have memberships or stuff for like 48 months and stuff, it's incredible to see how close everyone's become over the past year or two. It's been lovely to see. Lauren said, don't make strikers like they used to, so limited. Yeah, I agree, Lauren. There's not really a whole group there. Like, centre-backs, we've all discussed tonight whether we would agree or disagree, but we've all thrown a load of names out there and we've all agreed that there are some options. But yeah, the striker thing really is tough at the minute. There's not much bona fide guaranteed success out there in the striker department. There's a lot of taking a punt. Elliott and Jota, 40 million each plus 60 million for Isak. Are you doing it? Yeah, 140. Yeah, I do 140 in that regard. If you're moving on Jota and Elliott, yeah, I would. I'd go with that. But I still think we're overpaying. But I would do it if it got us Isak. Yes, I would. But I think we're overpaying. I do. If I valued Alexander Isak right now and not inflating it for any of this Premier League, if I just looked at him and thought, what is he worth as a striker? 85, 90 million pound is where I think his value is at the minute. Maybe a little bit higher. You could probably stretch to get to 100 million. But then you look at the injury record and you can't, with any type of a good conscience, say that doesn't play in your mind. If we were talking about Isak at 120 million upwards as somebody who plays every game of the season or doesn't have fitness concerns, yeah, different conversation. But he does. Now, whether we can improve that, like Ruben Peters and Arne Slot have done this season with some of our players, that's another conversation as well. Jason Hammond said, does the amount of change worry you in the team? Not too much, mate. No. I guess it's a matter of is how much of the starting 11 changes. So that's why I've always said I want Konate to stay, because I don't really want too much change in that pairing. It's a decent pairing. It's a good pairing. One of the better pairings in Europe. But how much of that is Virgil? Then right back, I'm actually excited, to be honest with you, over the change at right back. Because we all like Trent, but we knew that there was some limitations to certain things, or we were exposed because of the way we had to play to utilise him. So I'm kind of excited about the right side. Left side, come on, Milos Kerkez is the right guy at the right time, so I've no concerns on that. Into midfield, basically the way I've looked at this is we've brought in Wirtz and Elliott's going to depart. I've no concerns there. That's an upgrade. And then up top, well, we need change there, don't we? Because we're just not getting enough through the middle. So far, no. But like I said, if Konate leaves and you bring in another centre-back, you'd have to at least acknowledge that we need to get a rhythm of a partnership between whomever the next two might be to fight it out to battle with Verge for the other position. Right, where are we at? Do you think Darwin joins Napoli? Is the poll at the minute. It's pretty one-sided so far. Jason said, hi Craig, what do you think when Ekitike says he's waiting for Liverpool? Do you think he might be thinking if a move for Isak, the Newcastle move for him? Like, the most honest way I can answer that, Jason, is if I was in Hugo Ekitike's shoes, I'd be waiting for Liverpool right now, wouldn't you? You know, you've got options on the table. Chelsea are there. You can stay with Frankfurt and play in the Champions League next season. United were in the mix as well, although, let's be honest, at this point in time, always have a lure and a pull because they're a big name, but no European footballer at next season. So yeah, if I was him, I'd be waiting to see what Liverpool do as well. And if they do drop that price a little bit, as has been mentioned in the media over the past few days, then I think Hugo Ekitike becomes a little bit more of an attractive proposition. Just 100 million just seems excessive to me, but if you got him down to 85, 90 million euro, I think it's a different conversation for me with Hugo Ekitike. I think he's then worth bringing in because he has potential. No matter what side of this debate we're on, some people maybe think he's being overhyped at the minute, but the kid has potential and he has had a good season and he has done it in a good league and he is young and I would back Arne Slot to improve him. So that one seems far more feasible to me than probably any other centre forward at the minute. But I just don't know who Liverpool's preference is. I can only give you my opinion as a fan. Thoughts on swapping Konate for Pacho? So there's absolutely no chance that happens for a couple of reasons. One, Konate just has 1 year to go and Pacho's on a longer deal, so probably have to be a fair chunk of money. And secondly, PSG won't sell Pacho. Why would they? He's done really well for them this season. And they're looking at that centre-back as well from, is it Zabinani or whatever his name is, from Bournemouth. So yeah, I don't think any type of a swap deal for Pacho is possible. We missed the boat on Pacho when we had the chance to sign him. Johnny Rico said, Voltmata is a good shout instead of Diaz. He's definitely an interesting one, the 2-meter Messi. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I've watched Nick Voltmata inside out. I haven't, but I like the idea of the 42 million price tag as a potential option. Don't see him as a Diaz replacement, in all honesty. I would see him absolutely more as a Jota replacement, not even a Darwin replacement. I wouldn't feel comfortable if he was that replacement now. But do you know what else won't go away? The links to Anthony Gordon. That I know wind people up when I talk about them, I get it. But they ain't gone away either. Virginia said, per Lewis Steele on X, Van Dijk has vouched for Haddo and he's still on the radar of Liverpool. Virgil is a huge fan, Virginia, of Jarell Haddo, and that has to stand for something. You know, if you're Arna, who will know about Jarell Haddo, Virgil saying and coming out and saying he thinks he's the best developing young defender from the Netherlands, that has to stand for something when your club captain comes out with that. So yeah, I agree. Joel Hatter would be a very good addition. We've spoken about this quite a bit. I don't know if it happens or not, though. Like, I agree with you that I wouldn't be against it in any way, shape, or form, but yeah, I just don't know what the plan is for Liverpool in that regard. Arsenal have put an offer of a contract of about 6 years to him, but I don't know where they're at with Ajax. So, yeah, good shout, though. No disagreement. Joel Hatter was somebody that should be being looked at. He's coming through with Ajax. You always pay attention to good players coming through with Ajax. So yeah, no argument, and it's been put out there in the media by a few journalists that what you've said there, Virgil is singing his praises. I don't know, George, is the honest answer, mate. I don't know what he's doing, and that's why I've tried to be fair to Konate through this process. I'm not sitting here calling him a snake. Never once have I said anything like that. I've given my opinion on his wages and what I think he's worth. I've said that if you can't agree a fee with him or a number with him, you have to play hardball and sell, because we cannot afford to let Real Madrid get one over us again. We can't. So I hope he agrees an extension. I want him to stay. As I said about 10 minutes ago, having Virgil, Konate, potentially Marc Guehi and Joe Gomez is a very good collection of centre-backs. And if you brought in a young Joel Hatter or somebody as well to give you a little bit of cover in full-back and at left centre-back, that would be just incredible. Incredible. But I don't want to talk about Konate in the same breath as Trent, because I don't know what Konate's camp are saying. I've got a good read on the Trent situation over that year, and it was pretty damn clear what he wanted to do. But with Ibu, I don't know, so I don't want to throw him under a bus. Do you think Konate should be replaced by Guehi? No, I think they should compete for the spot if they're both at the club. Absolutely. I think both of them are going to want to play. Both of them are going to want to be first choice. And like I've always said, competition in the squad is only ever a good thing. I love that. I loved hearing Dominic Szoboszlai say he ain't giving up his position that easily and he's fighting for his place. I love that. That's absolutely what I want to hear as a fan. And I would say if Marc Guehi came in, I'd want Ibu to say, I'm not giving up my place, that's my spot. And I'd want Marc Guehi to come in and go, I want to be playing every week. I want to take your spot. That's healthy. That improves it. Competition's a good thing. Johan said, I agree with Craig's take on Konate. He is very inconsistent and makes too many mistakes. Definitely not worth 200k per week. I would say 140, 150 max. That's where I'm at. Don't want to lose him, but don't want to just pay silly money because we've let this contract situation get to this point. Did you see Mo trolling Dom? I did, mate. It did make me smile. I love that. That's a proper good sense of humour from Mo. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was definitely good. Well played, Mo, on that one. Sorry, I missed somebody get a membership, Frank, a while back. Frank, welcome in, bro. Sorry, I forgot to congratulate you on your membership, mate. My apologies. So Brad said Nico Schlotterbeck. Somebody said to me last week, Brad, that he's coming back from an injury still, and he missed a good chunk of the season. So I don't know if Schlotterbeck is somebody that will be able to come in and get back to fitness straight away. I don't know on that one, mate. Right. So we need about 400 more votes on the Darwin and Napoli thing, and then we'll call it. The question is, do you think Darwin joins Napoli? Manx Scum said, give Konate a week to sign a deal. If not, then sell. If he doesn't want to move, drop him to the reserves, miss the World Cup. That's what I said. You have to play hardball in the worst case scenario, but it would be a worst case scenario. Vimal said, Isak is max 90 million. No more with injury history. Believe we will get Ekitike and he will excel under Slot. Konate, sell him before he pulls a Trent. So for what it's worth, Vimal, and this is just guesswork, because like I've said, I've been honest, I don't know who Liverpool are going for through the middle. I just don't. But I agree with your take. Ekitike seems the most logical option at this point. You could even throw Osimhen into the mix as a logical option, but Ekitike does feel like the most likely for the way Liverpool operate. Young had some time in leagues like the French league. Obviously, had time then with sorry, I'm confusing myself here. Had time with who would I actually had time with Frankfurt, and had a career before his Liverpool career, which we know Liverpool like to look at, and is the right age bracket. It's just getting that price down a little bit. You'd want it less than €100 million because remember they only paid about 13 million for him, so that's one hell of a markup. But there has been some chatter, is that the right word? That maybe they're going to lower that valuation a little bit. And if they do even come down €10 million, I think then it becomes a far more realistic option for Liverpool. If I put money on the table right now, he would be the one I will put money on. If you said, Craig, here's 50 quid, who are you signing? Who do you think Liverpool bring in? I would put on Ekitike right now, based off what we're reading. But I know nothing on the inside of that one. Nothing. Ekitike potential, said Ayor. Rory said was reading 100 million plus shot for Isak might interest Newcastle. You're still getting to that 140, 150 million pound bracket though there, aren't you? Because Diogo Jota is probably a 40, 45 million pound forward if we were to sell him. So you're kind of still giving them 145 million pound, whichever way you look at it there. It just feels high. It does. I've always said the same thing, that I will do and get behind whoever Arna wants. If Arna wants Isak, then the club go get Isak. If they think the numbers are okay, go get Isak. But after that, I don't know, Ekitike feels the most likely. How much did we sell Nat Phillips? 3 million. Paul Joy said, Liverpool defender Nat Phillips has now completed his move to West Brom. Fee inclusive of add-ons is £3 million. What value do you think the club get for Chiesa? 15 to 18 million pound would be a guess. Yeah, I guess. It's a weird one, this. This will be one deal that I'll always kind of wonder about. Like, what happened there? Whose decision was it to sign him? Whose decision was it then to not give him the time of day? Was it all Arna? Was it the player brought in over his head? Or was a deal agreed maybe before? I don't know, but it's always been a very weird one. Because we all, as fans, are very warm and receptive towards Chiesa and the idea of him getting minutes. He's always had a smile on his face, always seemingly being very professional, not being a disruptive influence even when he wasn't getting minutes. It's just been a weird one. Really been a weird one, because there were times last year when you thought, give him a chance. Put him into the game. Like, give him a chance. What? Why not? Bastoni, Diamande would be good. Well, weird one, Mab, is that Marc Guehi's replacement at Palace, if they have their way, will be Diamande, which I do find a little bit interesting as well. We do have to keep an eye on the homegrown quota, like we've mentioned a few times this summer, but it's kind of interesting to see that if we signed Marc Guehi, they'd want to bring in Ousmane Diamande from Sorry, I'm distracted again. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by WhatsApp messages. They'd want to bring him in from Sporting Lisbon, sorry. Cody, the update, mate, I'll go through in a few minutes' time. Just still working through tonight's stream stuff, but no major breaking news today other than the Kwanzaa release clause, or buyback clause, which was rumoured at £51 million, but Florian Plettenberg's come out with something that's just wrong, quite frankly. So Plettenberg said Bayer Leverkusen will pay 30 million plus €5 million in add-ons for Kwanzaa, and Liverpool have a €40 million buyback option. I think every single part of that is wrong. Reports were £35 million, including add-ons. And why would you buy a player as Leverkusen for up to €35 million, improve him, and then let somebody come back in and buy him for €5 million extra? Even inflation over those 2 years. That would just be... If Liverpool have pulled that off, they've absolutely robbed Leverkusen. Absolutely robbed them blind if they've pulled that off. Basically, we've kept the receipt, sold him, have the receipt in here, knowing that at any point over the next year or two, if he's improved, we can just get him back basically for what we paid nearly. There's no club that I'd be aware of would be stupid enough to sign an agreement like that. It would be nuts. The 51 million pound buyback or 60 million euro makes way more sense for all parties. Bayern want Gakpo, Olise swap. Yeah, they're not getting rid of Olise, mate. Olise's been brilliant for them. What kind of offer did Konate reject? We don't know, mate. I'll read it out to you exactly as the post, or as the piece on Sky said, and I'll read it out to you in its entirety. It said, Ibrahima Konate has rejected Liverpool's initial offer to extend his contract, reports The Guardian. The 26-year-old is set to enter the final year of his current deal next month. Konate is said to be disappointed by the structure of the offer, which his representatives believe to be pushing for a higher basic wage after the offer was heavily based on meeting certain performance targets. That's what the report was. But I think there's also some crumbs of positivity in that. It's not that the numbers are way off, though it doesn't seem like the end result for Konate with the bonuses are really too far off what he's asking for. He just wants a higher guaranteed amount and less in add-ons. And on that, I would kind of be on the Liverpool side, because you want to make sure he does well, and incentivizing a contract, I think, is a healthy thing to do for the club. But I also know if I was in Konate's shoes, I'd want as much up front as I could be guaranteed as well. So, not me thinking he's being selfish here or anything, but we don't know the numbers. That's the part I keep trying to reiterate to people. We don't know the numbers involved in this, so I just want it to be done, because I don't want it to drag on all summer. I just don't want it to get to that point. I want us to have some cohesion going into pre-season. Eddie said, I'd also been watching Slaughterbeck, but his ACL injury is going to keep him sidelined for a while. It only happened in April. If we lose Ibu, VVD becomes the only world-class centre-back of the club. Collins and Guehi are great, but not world-class. Konate is not world-class. Sorry, he's not. These phrases get thrown around way too easily. He's not world-class. He's very good. Absolutely, a very good partnership with Virgil, but he's not world-class. And my argument would be that you could make an argument about Guehi being on the same level or not. That's an individual thing to say. I think Nathan Collins is criminally underrated by a lot of people, but I wouldn't bat an eyelid if we lost Konate and brought in Nathan Collins. Wouldn't lose 1 second sleep over it, because I don't think Ibu is anywhere near Virgil van Dijk level of ability. None. Nowhere near it. Fergal Rocha, Konate doesn't deserve a 100% increase in wages. Well, if the 200 grand a week stuff is true, my man, that's 150% he's looking for. Oh, I like this from Naturalist. I like this, mate. I like what you've said here. Naturalist said, if Konate thinks he's that good, why can't he back himself to meet the targets? I really like what you've said there. Yeah, exactly. Because not only just himself, but the team. Because it's not going to be based on just what Ibu achieves. It's going to be based on some things. Yeah, clean sheets will probably be in there. But silverware will be in there. Qualification for the Champions League will be in there. And these are all things, like you've said, if you have trust in the team, the process, and yourself, yeah, back yourself. Go get those higher wages. Right? Because that's what everybody wants, to be successful. And if the club win, not only do you get to celebrate winning there, but you get paid. You get good money for that. So, yeah, I like what you said, man. I think you've put it pretty succinctly. Justin said he's awkward and clumsy and has a mistake in him. He is, but he can also be brilliant. You know, at times I've looked at Konate and gone, oh, shit, this dude's good. Like, a beast. And other times I've looked at him and thought, has he lost the plot? Like, what's going on? It feels like if he's off it or he's having an off day, it can steamroll pretty quickly. One mistake can lead to another, can lead to a stupid decision, and it seems to go very quickly. So I don't think he's shown enough consistency yet to get to the 200 grand a week type wages. Kamal said it's not just skill, durability. None of them have proven themselves to be fit for a prolonged period except Van Dijk, so they can't accept the same money. Mason said, Craig, do you think we can do a swap deal with Nunez and Chiesa for Osimhen? So that, according to a report in Italy, Mason, and again I would say take with a pinch of salt, has been offered to Napoli, and Napoli's president, is De Laurentiis, said that 15 million on top. Now, for me, mate, for what it's worth, I don't think there should be any money on top. You know that Osimhen has a release clause, so he's valued at about 70 million euro, 62 million pound. And, you know, quick maths earlier on, I would value Darwin at somewhere 40 to 45, and I would value Chiesa 15 to 18. So even, let's say, meeting in the middle in both of them, so 16 and a half plus 42 and a half, what's that, 59. So you're not too far away from the 61, 62 that would be the release clause. So, yeah, for me, no money, but a very, very small amount. Jay Cliff said, Craig, Ori Haddo, Liverpool be advised to buy him now, give him a 6-year contract and loan him back to his club for another year. I mean, I don't disagree in theory, but it's a big outlay now to not get the player in, you know, about 40 million euro. If that was the only way to get him, though, yeah, wouldn't be against it. Yeah, wouldn't be against it. But I'd rather we got him in right now. But like we said earlier on, and some of the chat have said, Virgil pushing really hard for the club to sign Haddo because, you know, he believes he's a great, great, great talent, the best to come out of the Netherlands defensively in recent times. So you got to listen. But look, I'd also say this. We've a Dutch manager and Dutch assistant. They will know all about Haddo. You know, they will know every bit of information. And they'll also be keeping an eye on Arsenal's interest in him because, you know, they're hovering around. And there's been talk they offered him a contract, but certainly doesn't look like they've come to an agreement with Ajax or anything. His reject contract feels like betrayed. No, man, not for me, mate. You know, no problem with a player rejecting an initial offer of a contract. I mean, let's be honest about this. None of us would ever accept the first offer in anything in life. You know, if somebody's coming to buy your car and make you an offer, you're going to think, no, that's your first offer. You're going to come up from that. So I don't mind the back and forth between Konate and the club. But I just think there has to be a cut-off point where you're, you know, cards on the table, best offers all around, and then you either shake hands on it and sign it or you part ways, but it just can't drag on indefinitely. Would I take Lautaro Martinez? No, he's too old and I don't think he's suited to the Premier League. What wage per week is Konate rejecting? Nobody knows, Steve. At least I don't know, and the report doesn't say. It doesn't give a number whatsoever, mate. David Wood said Arsenal got Subamendi. Yeah, they did. And look, like I said, he's a good player. I'm not going to sit here and try and rewrite history now that Arsenal have gotten him. But if we look at how it worked out for us in the grand scheme of things, we've got Gravenberch, McAllister, and Szoboszlai, and we've just added in Wirtz. So, you know, great signing for Arsenal. Very much is. But I don't think we've been weakened by the experience, is probably what I'd say. But he is a very good player and I would have loved him at the club. I'm not going to say any different, but yeah, with what we've got and the way it ended up, I'm not heartbroken about it, you know. Florian Wirtz is an absolute dream as a fan to see come in. Lautaro is only 27. Yeah, like I said, for me, too old for the amount of money that would be asked. And I just don't rate him. In all honesty, I just don't rate him. Not in the Premier League. I think in Italy, Serie A, or excuse me, in La Liga, maybe, absolutely. Just not for us. Bishi said Konate could be world class, but needs to cut out enforced errors, charging in back of opposition's non-threatening areas, show fitness better than last season, and also be more aware of positioning. I agree with every word you've written, Bishi. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Jamie said, Craig, my dad works for a financial advice company, and one of my dad's colleagues had a meeting with Konate, and it was very much a question of if he were to move abroad, how easy is it to move his money? Again, I mean, I don't know if, I don't know you, Jamie, so I'll take what you've said at face value. It wouldn't bother me either way because he's right to look at every avenue. Of course he is. If I was in his shoes, I'd want to play it out in every situation. What if I move abroad? What if I stay in England? What if I do this? What if I go to Saudi? What if I do that? Yeah, he's right to explore every avenue to see how it all pays out for him. Same, yeah, I've no problem with that. Right, let me get back in here. 1 second. Where are we at? Is it this way or this way? It's that way. What about Thuram? I think you meant to say, Stephen, from Inter. I'd certainly go for him ahead of Martinez if you were looking for somebody, but again, I don't think he's good enough for Liverpool. FSG are looking at 24, 25 max age unless another Wirtz player. I agree. That's why I keep saying that of the names being thrown around, Ekitike just seems like the most Michael Edwards FSG type signing of any of the forwards that we've been linked with. I mean, I remember reading a piece the other day that said even 1 year down the line now, Isak would probably be viewed as too old internally at Liverpool to commit that amount of money. Do you think Slot sees Jones as a fringe player? Don't know, mate. Certainly views him as an important player, and I think Curtis has come off the back of his best season. So, but again, if we're being honest about it, with Wirtz coming in, he's gone down the pecking order 1 notch anyway. If you're looking at attacking midfield options, you're probably saying it's Wirtz, Szoboszlai, and then Jones. Maka being in there in the middle in the balance, who can either be an attacking midfielder or a deeper line one, and certainly ahead of Jones in the pecking order in any way you measure it up. So, yeah, I think Wirtz's arrival has probably pushed Jones back down the squad one more bit, but, Curtis will back himself to keep working hard, keep improving, and showing the manager. The manager clearly trusts him. He's used him quite a bit this season. What's left on Joe's contract? I want to say there's at least 3 years, but I don't have the answer to hand. Just have a recollection that is about 2 to 3 years. Craig, thoughts on Mickey van de Ven and if he had to come to Liverpool? If you took out his injury record, no argument. Brilliant. Incredible pace. And when I'd seen him play for Spurs initially, I'd be a liar if I told you I didn't feel like we'd missed a trick there. But the injuries, they have been pretty constant. And that would be a huge concern because we need stability. And, we need durability. And I don't think you get that with Van de Ven. But he's a damn good player. David Smith said Diaz must go to bed crying when he hears what Konate wants. Could Romero possibly move to Liverpool? So I don't know if all this has started because there has been a lot of conversation about Romero and Liverpool in the last week or two, but I don't know if it all started from that Alexis McAllister comment about a player he'd love to see come in, or love to play alongside. I wonder if that has kickstarted it. I don't know. There has certainly been talk of him leaving Spurs. If I'm not misremembering, I think I think he was linked with a move to Barcelona at one point. If I'm misremembering that, apologies. But yeah, it just feels like it's only kicked on since Maka said that thing. But yeah, I'd imagine buying any player from Spurs would be an absolute ball ache of the highest order, because Daniel Levy's known to be very, very, very tough to negotiate with, and he would probably ask an obscene sum of money. So this is slightly incorrect, Dennis. It's 30 plus 5 million. You're right about that, but it's 50 million buyback, 51 million or 60 million euro, mate. It's 30 million pound plus 5 million pound, and the buyback is 51 million pound or 60 million euro. But at least, again, that's what's being reported. Grim Reaper said, we also see that Jones can play right back. So if anything happens to Bradley when Frimpong is covering for Mo, when at the AFCON, Jones can cover for us at right back. Yeah, it certainly wouldn't be looking for him to play there too often, my man, but you're right. He can certainly play there. There's no doubt about that. Right, let's check this poll. Right, we've got over the votes we needed now. So the question was, do you think that Darwin Nunez joins Napoli? 80% of you guys said yes, you do believe that Darwin signs for Napoli. And thank you to everyone that took part. TOTT2KZ1, how are we, dude? Said, in my view, give Ebu a time frame to sign, and if he doesn't sign, sell him. Use money to get Guehi. Don't need another reason or season of will they, won't they? So the Guehi money is going to come from Kwanzaa. So that money's there. Now, I'm not saying they've agreed a fee with Palace. There is a gap in what we're offering and what Palace are looking for. But when you're thinking about these things, think of it that it's Guehi for Kwanzaa. But on top of that, I just have something in the back of my mind that feels that Hughes and Edwards have their own concerns about Konate. And that's why they're not willing to go to these big, big numbers. That's, if I'm reading this from the outside and guessing, which I am, that's my guess. That they look at Konate and think what we've all said can be brilliant, can be a little bit erratic, and that they just don't think he's got that reliability to move into that 200 grand a week bracket yet. I would bet my life that Edwards and Hughes just feel like that's the case, and that they could get another centre back of equal ability for less. That's honestly what I'd be guessing right now, and that's what the hold up would be on upping the ante here for Konate and giving him more money. That would be my guess at it. Joe Di Vigiani said, thoughts on Šeško? Hasn't been linked to us, and with Arsenal seemingly going for Gyökeres could be an option. I'm surprised he hasn't been considered along with Ekitike. I've said for a while, mate, I like him. The asking price does seem excessive. I'm not going to lie, it does. But like you, I thought there would have been more links, especially with the fact that Kloppo's there, Red Bull have kind of similarly played a system like ours or similar to ours over the years. They've proven, very astute at coaching players and bringing them through. He went from obviously Salzburg then to Leipzig and still young. So for me, yeah, I'm surprised there hasn't been more talk about it as well. I think he's a good player, and I certainly think he has a lot of prospects, a lot of ability, and a lot of improvement still to come. Craig, did you see the news about Osimhen's clause 70 million, but Napoli are willing to negotiate with Nunez, Chiesa and 70 million euros? It doesn't make any sense to me, Henry, because the valuations that we would have, let's say, on Nunez and Chiesa will probably get very close to his release clause. So the £15 million or whatever it is that De Laurentiis wants just seems excessive. If there was a deal to be done on a straight swap for the two players, even maybe a tiny bit of money. But outside of that, anything above 5 million, and I think it's too much. Thoughts on Matthias Tell? He has pace, power and finishing. Very good. Well, he's just signed for Spurs on a permanent, mate. That was done for 32 million over the last week. They got Thomas Frank in. Obviously, ran it past him what he thought, and they've agreed and signed up, taken up that option to buy him from Bayern. So he's a Spurs player. Jason Curry, Marc Guehi deal is done. They're saying 40 million or 5 million in bonuses. He's also spoken to his friends about joining Liverpool. If those numbers, Jason, and do you mind me asking, bro, where you're seeing the reports, but if those numbers are right, mate, I think that's fair. I'd be delighted, mate, if that was the case, and we heard that Marc Guehi was coming in for the numbers you've mentioned there. Because remember, they were asking, or they turned down about 70 million quid. So, yes, he's 1 year to go, and they're somewhat under the gun there with pressure, but I think 40 million 5 in add-ons, I'd take that right now, considering we got 30 and 5 in add-ons for Kwanzaa. Yeah, I'd be all over that, mate, to be honest with you. And like you said, I've also seen the reporting that he has spoken to friends about it and let it be known that if he was to move, Liverpool would be his preference. I've seen that. Do you think we could get both Guehi and Collins? 100%, but only if Konate leaves. If Konate doesn't leave, which again I hope he doesn't, we've no need to go back in to get Collins. So Marc Guehi, Gomez, who is staying, Konate and Virgil, happy days. No problem with that. But if the worst comes to the worst and we lost Ibu, definitely you could bring in Nathan Collins and Marc Guehi in the same window. I would pay the extra 50 million from he'll bang and Nunez isn't going to cut it. I think it's a tough one though, because we're already taking a hit on what we paid for Darwin. We paid 71. I know that it could have gone higher, but we've so far paid 71. So you're already taking a hit on him going down to 40, 45. And if you put the 50 million on top of that again, even if you put 10 million of that towards him, you're basically giving him for about 30, 35 million quid. And I don't think that's good business for us. Craig Fabrizio just confirmed on his Facebook that Isak's staying at Newcastle. Again, not surprised to hear that. There's no value in that deal for a buying club at the minute. I've always understood Newcastle's reluctance. I mean, God, if I was in their position, I wouldn't want to be selling them. But the numbers that were being quoted were just nonsense. 150 to 200 million for a player that has injury concerns. Yeah. I never felt this one was going to happen. It wouldn't go away, like we've said many times, but it never really felt like it was doable, did it? Ekitike feels like the one most likely, looking at the numbers and guessing at the situation. Do you think Wirtz will reach the level of Coutinho in his prime? He'll be better than Coutinho, mate. He already is, in my opinion, better than Felipe Coutinho, whom I love, by the way. I just think, again, we look back on this and probably remember things a little bit too clearly, or a little bit too fondly. I think Wirtz will, we were never the conversation where we thought Coutinho could win a Ballon d'Or, as an example. But Wirtz, I do feel, can win a Ballon d'Or. So yeah, I think this signing is incredible. There's no other words for it, in my opinion. It's absolutely incredible. And while I really enjoyed Coutinho at Liverpool, and I did, especially his goal against United, by the way, in the Europa League, that was magic at the near post. Yeah, I think Wirtz is another level again. Do you think Frimpong will be better than Trent? It depends. Do I think he'll ever have the ball striking ability or range of passing that Trent has? No. But do I think he might work harder, track back more, and defend a bit better on occasion? Yeah. I think between the balance of Bradley and Frimpong, I think we've got some really good options. So I'm very happy about what we have available on the right side. How do you think Sunderland will do now they've made the return to the Premier League? I think it might come down to the business that they do in the market as well. Losing Bellingham to Dortmund is weird. It almost feels like the Bellingham brothers just don't want to play in the Premier League, doesn't it? Both of them moved on. The younger Bellingham, after they've just got promoted up to the Premier League, And again, understand it. Dortmund are a cool club, and it's a big step up from. Not trying to say it wasn't a good move for him, but it's mad that we haven't seen either of those two brothers play the Premier League. It is that in itself to me just feels nuts. Lucky Charm said Murillo from Forest should have a sniff. Left foot 23. Yeah, no question, mate. I felt the fact that they didn't qualify for like Champions League or Europa League and ended up in the Conference League. I mean, maybe now he's attainable. It looked as if with them getting Champions League football, there probably would have been no chance. But I dare say that if you ask a lot of people in the chat, Murillo's name would be fairly high up on the potential wish list. Would you take Morgan Rogers considering they've no European football? I don't think we need him. Honestly, I think we're pretty much boxed off in his position at the minute. Yeah, I like the attacking midfield options that we have. And I don't think he's pacey enough to utilise in a wide position. So yeah, I think we're good. You know, before Wirtz, would I have taken him? Absolutely. I said this before, Morgan Rogers is a great player. And I would have happily taken him, but not right now after Wirtz coming in. I just don't think there's a need. Why has there been no talk about Diogo leaving the club? There has been. Nothing concrete, no offers coming in yet, but if you read through a lot of the journalists when they're starting listing off players, his name has been up there. Wolves have been linked with a move for him. Newcastle have been linked with a move for him, but no talk of numbers or offers yet coming forward. And remember, he'd be on holidays at the minute as well after his exploits with Portugal and that at the end of the season. Hamza said, Craig, my dream Liverpool signing would be Alvarez. I'm with you, mate. I'd love him. I'd also still love us to look at Ederson from Atalanta as a potential. If the manager doesn't feel that Bajcetic is ready to come in, let's say, and take over the backup role for Gravenberch, I'd love to see us go out and try and get him again. Ederson from Atalanta. I've always been a fan of his as well. Is there any updates on Isak? Apparently there was. Somebody said earlier on, Romano said on his Facebook page he was staying at Newcastle, which again I always thought was probably going to be the case based on the numbers involved. David said, think Slot likes him. Hope last season's dip in form was a one-off. Yeah, I totally get that as well, and I agree with you, David. You know, you look at the options that we had last season, and he tended, for the latter part of the season, to edge more towards Diogo than Darwin, so I certainly think you're right, mate. I think Arna does rate Diogo, as he should, by the way, as he should. It's just a question of, was last season a blip and a fitness thing, or is he starting to drop in level? Jason said, Craig, I want to say thank you to you and this group. It's my go-to for cheering me up from my depression. You're genuine, real, lots of love from Australia. Thank you. Well, firstly, Jason, I hope that dark cloud lifts, mate, and brighter times are ahead. I'm really, really honestly touched to hear that the community's helped you a bit. That's definitely the aim, mate. You know, we're all going to have ups and downs in life, and I've been through dark times as well. And this group, this wonderful group of people, has changed my life, helped my life, and I'm always getting contacted by people who speak about the others in our community. You're like, you know I can be snappy at times when someone's being a bit of a dick, but I love you all dearly, and you know, this group together, it really is a special group of people, and I don't put myself at that. I'm talking about people who are in there every night talking with each other, interacting. It's been a privilege of my life to get to know a lot of you. Honestly, it really has. Right, on that, a couple of quick things. One, don't forget, last show ever, live, on stage, Hot Water Comedy Club, Liverpool, Sunday, 19th of October. It's the weekend of the Manchester United game, and because we've got less overheads on this, we've put the ticket prices right down, £15, but they are limited in number, so when they are gone, and we won't be going up to a bigger venue size or anything. So if you want to come and see us, that is the last ever stage show. We've got one in Cork coming up. Do I have that still here? Yeah, we've Cork coming up, 8th of August, and again, that'll be our last Irish show. second last show ever. So if you want to come and see us in Cork, it's an over 18s gig because of the venue licensing law. So you can scan that QR code. And to everyone that's already got their tickets to Liverpool, thank you. I can't wait to come and see you guys. Got my hotel booked, going to the United game that weekend myself, and I cannot wait to see everybody again in Liverpool. Jordan said, I'm new to watching you, mate. Really enjoying it. Best Liverpool channel on here. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you. Yeah, again, some of it down to our hard work, but a lot of it down to the great group of people that we have in here. What's this? A few bits coming in. And what else was there? Oh, yes. Also our WhatsApp. If you want to join our WhatsApp community, it's almost at 7,000 people. We do post in all the latest updates, stuff like that. You'll get an occasional voice note from me in there and certainly get some shit jokes as well along the way. But if you want to join, scan that QR code and obviously open to everybody. You're very welcome in. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say goodnight to you all. I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully we get some clarity on this situation with Ibrahima Konate soon enough. Again, appreciate you all tonight. If I could ask you to hit the like button for me before you head off. We're 817. If we can get that up to 1,000 likes, again, our record remains intact. Appreciate you all. News video with an update around the situation with, let me check my notes. We're going to be talking Isak. We're going to be talking Barcola as well in the late video. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Konate situation and a few others. So keep an eye out for that one. It'll be out in the next 20 minutes. Much love. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.